I am very excited first to welcome Dr. Michael Goodkin. He's a cardiologist, been practicing for decades. He has won several court cases allowing patients to get access to medication that have been withheld from them despite their and their family's wishes, which is an insane change in the practice of medicine. I want to discuss with him in detail. We'll talk a little long COVID as well. Then Alex Krainer came in here. I'll be bringing him in here, and I'm going to quote what he'd like to talk about. The collapse of Europe under the totalitarian jackboot of the globalist tards. Okay, I'm up for that. And then Tom Homan comes in after that. You guys all know Tom Homan. He is, of course, in charge of the border and Homeland Security. And I'm going to get in deep with him. He'll be here. I've met him. He's a good guy. And I'm looking forward to all of this. So stay with us.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for Christ's sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I've spent most of my career dealing with illnesses that shorten life, and now we have ways to extend it and extend wellness. I've been working with the team over at V-Shred to develop a product that has everything I want in a longevity supplement. NR Boost has nicotinamide riboside. You know, metal can rust. Well, your body behaves in a similar way. It's mediated through something called NAD. NAD falls as we age, so we're less able to fight off that oxidative process. We oxidize much like that metal. And NAD fights it, but nicotinamide riboside elevates NAD so we can push back on those oxidative stressors, improving health, improving longevity. The other product is Senosync, has fisetin, one of the key molecules to fight off zombie cells, and we've added resveratrol to that, which is a well-known anti-aging antioxidant again. I don't like supplements that have a ton of ingredients. To me, it suggests that none of it's working. When I prescribe a medication, I prescribe that medicine because I expect that to work. That is exactly what I've done with these products. And I want you to go to drdrew.com/vshredmd for 10% off. Again, that is drdrew.com/vshredmd. Dr. Michael Goodkin is a cardiologist. He's a fellow at the American College of Cardiology. Most of you don't understand that our professional societies are really what determine our standing. I have the American College of Physicians. He has the American College of Cardiology. And if you achieve fellowship status, that is the highest honor that our professional societies give our professionals. He's been practicing for 30 years. He has now been looking at POTS, the blood pressure change with positioning syndrome that we've seen with COVID. The spike protein is also doing a lot of work with long COVID. And he's on, he can be found at trialsnews.com and standinguptopots, POTS.org. Dr. Goodkin, welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here. I wanted to correct one thing. You said I settled the case. I didn't. That was a lawyer. Ralph Lorigo is an attorney in Buffalo I spoke to an hour ago. So he represented 200 families where the hospital would not allow their loved one to get ivermectin. These patients were mostly on ventilators. It was completely insane. Ivermectin is FDA-approved drug. It was being used off-label. So the hospitals would do anything to keep these patients from getting ivermectin. God knows why. So in court, he won 70 times. 67 of the patients lived. 130 times he either lost in court or he didn't get to a judge in time. They all died. So it was like a randomized trial. If you got a good judge and you got ivermectin, 96% chance you lived. If you got a bad judge, you didn't get ivermectin, 100% chance you died. Now, Ralph told me that he told these hospitals what was going on, that he had all the success rate. They didn't care. He told me today about Rochester General. He sued them 6 times. The first 3 times, the patient got ivermectin and lived. because he won. They still kept fighting him. Like, what is wrong with these people? So almost everybody who died of COVID died in the hospital, right? 1.2 million people. Certainly seems like most of them could have been saved by ivermectin. Ralph has really not got a chance to tell his story to the public. He is in contact with Kennedy and with Ron Johnson. So I don't know if it's something going to happen. Now, I was not involved in that. I was involved in looking at the large randomized ivermectin trials. I first got involved in this because I saw that there was evidence that famotidine worked. Famotidine is the heartburn drug.
Pepsid.
Pepsid.
Yeah, Pepsid.
It blocks certain receptors on mast cells. Mast cells release histamine and cause allergies, but they can release a lot of other stuff and interact with other white blood cells, and were a factor in causing cytokine storm. So a mast cell expert, Lawrence Afrin, published a paper in which he thought the symptoms of COVID were typical of mast cell activation syndrome. He said 17% of the general population has mast cell activation syndrome, and those were the people getting really sick. He said that the patients of his who he put prophylactically on Zyrtec, which is an H1 blocker, and famotidine, an H2 blocker, if they got COVID, they never got sick. I sent this stuff to the American Academy of Asthma, Allergy, and Immunology. They wrote back, "Thank you for your email. We had no idea there was any relationship between COVID and mast cells. So if you're an allergist, your whole life is mast cells." We said we're sending it to the coronavirus task force. 3 weeks later, they wrote back to me and said, it's all theory. I knew immediately they were captured. And to this day, there's nothing on their website saying that COVID has anything to do with mast cells. So it wasn't just the early variants, but the vast majority of people with long COVID have mast cell activation syndrome, and it can be treated with over-the-counter and generic drugs. So the whole thing is disgusting. I somehow wound up getting involved.
Let's stop with that. Wait, I want to stop right there. I want to stop with disgusting, because it is disgusting. And I would like to step away from whether the reports that you're quoting are accurate or reflective of a real treatment. I'm going to take your word for it. But my question always is, what the hell happened to our profession? What is going on here? It is truly disgusting that doctors are being prevented from doing what they think is in the best interest of the patient. I don't even understand. I can't even imagine a world. And it was routine. And then doctors prevented other doctors from doing what they thought was the best interest of the patient. And then if that wasn't successful, the hospitals would step in and prevent physicians from doing their work. Anybody but the doctor doing what they thought was best for the patient. What is happening?
It's crazy. The leadership in our profession. Well, I'll explain what happened. So what happened is, I'll go briefly into these ivermectin trials. Probably the most important one to Americans was Active 6. It was NIH sponsored, run by the Duke Clinical Research Institute and Vanderbilt and some other people. So what had happened is, in December 2020, Pierre Corey had testified to the Ron Johnson Senate Committee that ivermectin was a miracle drug. The next month he met with NIH. They changed their recommendations from against to neutral, but the FDA recommended against it, and they started with their, the horse campaign, and they got drugstores not to sell it. They got state medical boards to punish doctors for ordering it. It's crazy. This is FDA.
Are we already but we're already in Insaneville already, right there. We've gone now into outer space.
Right. So anyway, they decided that NIH had to run a trial. So 4 different trials opened between March and June of 2021. The first one was Together. That was from Canada. Patients were in Brazil. It said that ivermectin did not show statistical benefit. Now, I can tell you they severely underdosed it. They gave it late. They gave it on an empty stomach when the blood level was 157% higher with the fatty meal. and they limited the dose in overweight patients. Overweight patients are already at high risk, right? So they limited their dose to 36 milligrams. So those patients should have gotten 50, 60 milligrams. So it was insane. The second study that came along was COVID out. I'm not going to talk much about that. The third one was Active 6, sponsored by NIH. So what they did was they knew that ivermectin was safe from a trial from 2002 at 120 milligrams for 3 days. So what did they do? They gave patients 30 milligrams for 3 days. And they gave it on an empty stomach when that same trial said the blood level would have been 157% higher with a fatty meal. They got it to patients really late, an average of 6 days. Anything would have failed getting it 6 days. Paxlovid wouldn't have worked. Even then, with all the stuff they did, it showed a 98% chance of benefit. So what did they do? They changed the time when the data was analyzed, the primary endpoint, from 14 to 28 days after the fact. You can't do that.
So, Dr. Goodkin, I want to tell you this, my audience, I could talk to you about this all day, but my audience is not a medical audience. They're not going to want to hear the details of clinical crossover trials or any of the analysis. They're going to want to hear what happened to their doctor, what happened to the profession that adulterated it so severely that we can't have these conversations, that I got put in YouTube jail for people like you coming in and saying, hey, we have some data, looks good on this one drug, and boom, immediately put in YouTube jail. There was an absolute adulteration of everything from the medical literature to the practice of medicine, to the ability to prescribe in a farm. Every layer of medicine was adulterated. And it reminds me of what happened during the opioid crisis, frankly, because the same thing happened then. They came in, the evangelists came in, and they got control of the regulators, they got control of our professional societies, they got control of the pharmacies, they control the VA, and then that's it. Everybody that doesn't comply is an idiot. And in this case, everyone who didn't comply was a murderer. You're going to kill people. And I actually have to wrap up our conversation, but I'll let you have last thoughts here on what happened to us. Why can't we fully recover from it and have a reckoning where people apologize for ruining the practice of medicine and ruining the scientific discourse?
Okay, so we'll say one thing. There's no question that there was fraud and collusion with all these trials. They did everything possible to make ivermectin look like it didn't work. Long list of things. Now, how did they get away with it? Well, nobody in academic medicine would say anything. Why? They were afraid of the government. They're afraid they'd lose their grant money. The government paid out $178 billion to medical organizations. And they still won't say anything. So there's no threat now if they tell the truth. I told everybody. I told the people running the trial. During the trial, I got a response from Cliff Lane, and they did nothing. I have tons of emails to the American College of Physicians, American College of Cardiology, Infectious Disease Society of America, board members of the AMA. They all know what happened. They won't open their mouth. So what needs to get done is, I think, Jay Bhattacharya, NIH chairman, needs to investigate. His group ran a fraudulent trial. And I think the only way people will believe it is if they hear it from him.
And I think they would be very interested in this communication you had where you put people on notice of what had happened and what you were seeing. I would love to see some of that communication, frankly. And I'll see if I can get in front of people. Have they been looking at any of your stuff?
I can tell Children's Health Defense has most of it. So
okay.
So people have it. There's no defense.
Okay.
And I suggested to the Annals of Internal Medicine just published a phony trial from Norway alleging that that aluminum in vaccines was safe. I wrote to the CEO, the head of ethics, and the editor-in-chief of the Annals of Internal Medicine. You guys went too far. You're going to get crushed by the government. Kennedy is not going to let this stand, and he has come out against it. Why don't you make a deal?
Well, I mean, look.
Retract the article, publish something truthful, and while you're at it... It
should be retracted if it's bad research. You know, we all know that research goes back and forth before a consensus is achieved. We see bad studies, good studies. confirmatory studies, non-confirmatory, non-informative studies. And that's how we achieve. This may have just been a non-informative study. But Dr. Goodkin, I've got a whole packed show here today. I appreciate you being here. Where can people find you and read more about what you're doing?
I have about 40 opinion pieces at Trial Site News. That'd be most. Everything is there. I have 2 videos about the Active 6 trial. One I did with Dan O'Connor, the owner. That's about an hour and a half. Peter McCullough posted it on Twitter. It got 20,000 views the first day. So it's hard to explain these trials to the lay people, but trust me,
yes.
Any doctor that reads this goes, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Trialsitenews.com. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Coming up, we have, let me get my next guest because people are very excited about him coming. I'm seeing a lot of the buzz on the Restream chat. Alex Krainer. What's that, Susan?
Alex Krainer.
Yes, Alex Krainer. You can find him at, Naked Hedgie, HEDGIE on X, alexkrainer.substack.com, and also isystem-if.com. Alex, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Drew.
So, I am very interested in this quote. I'm sorry for giggling, but I am giggling because it's true. The collapse of Europe under the totalitarian jackboot of the globalist tards. Take it from there, please.
Well, I go back to what happened last Sunday when Donald Trump summoned the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, to his golf resort in Scotland and absolutely humiliated her in presenting his trade deal and getting the whole deal shoved down her throat, where there was no concessions made by the American side, all concessions given by the European side, and taking in $750 billion in energy exports from the United States, committing to $600 billion in direct investments by the European economies into the United States, and buying an undisclosed but massive amount of American-made weapons for the European defense needs. All of this it was a gargantuan need. The Europeans, up until that point, they believed, well, we're a big trade bloc. We're 450 million affluent consumers. The United States can't treat us just like that. So they were convinced that they were going to get 0 for 0 tariff deal, and instead they got 0 for 15% tariff deal, meaning the U.S. exports into Europe go tariff-free. European exports into the United States go with a 15%
Alex?
Tariff. Yes,
Alex. There's I listen very carefully to what's going on in France that's my prism of understanding Brussels. And France, I think, is going to have another $40 million a year charged to them or something just for the privilege of sending people to Brussels. And my understanding is for every single so-called volunteer that is a representative in Brussels, these are not elected officials. There's 110 lobbyists for each one. And although they are given very little salary, they all manage to come up with $400,000 or $500,000 a year of cash flow. The whole thing sounds like a house of cards to me. And when I am listening, I sort of tune into what the French are feeling. I'm starting to hear either a CCM republic, a sixth republic, or Frexit. We need to get out of the EU. And if that happens, or do you think that might happen, what then?
Well, you're hearing right. The discontent is broad-based and wide. I have friends who are close to the French military circles, and these people actually expect that the unraveling is going to come along with a civil war, and they're preparing for it. So we might get social uprisings, we might get heavy-handed repression by the government, and we might get civil wars. In fact,
So hold on.
Yeah.
So what is Europe? God knows Europe has had its run with totalitarianism. You would think, and they're all highly educated. You would think more than any region on the planet, they would be the region least likely to lean into the totalitarian impulses. Here, I'm shocked to see it too, but it's kind of, there's an adequate pushback because of maybe our size or our history or our culture. But for goodness sakes, Europe, they're going to lean again into totalitarianism? What the heck?
Well, this has been set up from the get-go. The European Union has been, was meant to be this prestigious club bringing together world's most affluent, most advanced economies in a trade zone, in a common economic bloc. But it's been turning into a sort of a Soviet Union sans the Marxist ideology. Okay, which actually makes it even worse because at least
I don't know.
Without it, Marxism, at least it has its coherent aspects that are compelling to some people. As it is, European Union is kind of like a Soviet Union, but without that. And then the best they came up with is climate change and LGBT. I don't see anything else that would bring any sense of coherence to this union. So basically, I think that the union's future is going to resemble the Soviet Union, which just at one point in 1991 finally unraveled and imploded.
As this might as well, right?
Yes, I think, no, it's not that it might, it will absolutely and for sure. It's a mathematical certainty. It has no legitimacy. And there's going to be more and more countries and more voters that are going to want out. And now today,
and they've mastered the legal lawfare that we have here in this country. That seems to be their main cudgel in silencing people like Marine Le Pen. Just put them all in prison, or in Brazil, put them in prison. So who's going to be pushing this if indeed there is social uprising? Is this Germany?
I think it's going to be more likely Eastern European countries, meaning the former communist bloc. And I think that there's less of, I think that I'm from Croatia, which used to be, a socialist country under one-party communist rule, former Yugoslavia. I think there's less tolerance for totalitarianism in Eastern Europe. We've seen it before. We recognize it for what it is. In the West,
you're inoculated.
Well, it's not so much that we're inoculated, but we recognize it for what it is. Whereas in a lot of Western countries, like Germany, France, Belgium, Spain, and so forth, they've only ever lived under one system. And a lot of people are convinced that, government has their back. They want the best for what's, trust the system. The government has your back. Follow the rules, comply, obey, and so forth. Whereas in the East, we had an ugly experience of the whole political system unraveling and collapsing before our eyes, which is an unthinkable event, but it did happen. So we're less attached to the current political structure, and we see them as transitory. Whereas I think that in the West, there's more of a tendency to see them as permanent, and that them prevailing over the actual democracy of European populations is, let's say, a much more likely outcome of this crisis.
Interesting. I get what you're saying. I also feel like people that were under the former communist system don't trust the press. They understand the press is full of shit too, and they sort of they fall for the stuff that we fall for here. And we were just in Croatia a couple months ago, and when we moved down into Montenegro, I went, what's going on here? Oh, Montenegro's not in the EU. It's why things are so much better economically in Montenegro. And I'm guessing that Split, not to make fun of, I know we went to Split, in fact, but that Split is going to ring true to people, and they're going to look at Montenegro and go, why can't we be like that? And if they start coming down harder, they'll know that. They'll see the problem.
Yeah, correct. Croatia became part of the EU in 2013. And it is plain as day that we are much, much worse off for it now. The controls went up. Everybody is in debt up to their eyeballs. The country is in debt up to the hilt. Prosperity is down. The infrastructure is decaying. Social services are, poorer and poorer, and there's less and less. So basically, the quality of life has taken a very steep dive practically from the day we joined the European Union. We were promised that we were joining this prestigious club of prosperous nations, and that all we have to do is copy paste all the rules, regulations, directives, and follow them to a T, and we would be doing great. Exactly the opposite happened.
Alex, I got to take a little break here. When we get back, I want to talk about life in the feedlot. Does that sound like a good place to go next? Shall we examine that now that we've moved on from the jackboot? Do you want people mostly, well, first of all, of course, we've got the Naked Hedgie on X. Do you want people to go to the Substack, alexkrainer.substack.com?
Yeah, that's my personal Substack. I have two publications there. One of them is my personal Substack, where I publish from time to time, generally somewhat better researched, more refined articles. But I also have a daily trend following newsletter for investors and traders on Substack, which is called iSystem Trend Compass. So depending on who's interested in what. All the prose is free of charge. Excellent. Only the trading signals are behind the paywall.
Excellent. Susie may want to look at that. Alex Krainer will be right back with him. Tom Homan coming up at the 2:45 our time. So we'll be right back. Pay attention, everybody. These people, we stand behind them. Be right back. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years. And may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. Weight loss and gum loss, the wellness company's got you covered with new products. Drop. It's for aggressive appetite control. It comes in easy-to-use liquid drops. No prescription, no painful shot. It is an oral peptide called retartritide. It actually mimics the way the body naturally loses weight, and it is designed to support faster, more focused weight loss when combined with healthy eating and exercise. And Smile is a breakthrough fluoride-free peptide toothpaste. It gently whitens and reverses gum loss, actually rebuilding tissue at its source with a proprietary blend of peptides, remineralizers, and soothing botanicals. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for more information on Drop and Smile. And check out another new and innovative solution for hair loss called Roots while you're there. That's drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off. What's so special about Paleo Valley's grass-fed and finished bone broth and superfood bars? Well, everything. All are delicious, high in nutrients, low in calories, and contain nothing artificial. Co-founder Autumn Smith on what goes into every superfood bar.
So we have bone broth protein powder, and then we've added other superfoods, cashew butter, we have spirulina in there, acerola, broccoli powder, kale, blueberries. And so it really is kind of just an infusion of superfoods with every bite.
And then there's the extraordinary bone broth protein made with an ancestral approach that boosts our collagen intake.
Collagen is something that's gone by the wayside in our modern diet because we don't eat nose to tail anymore, but it was something we ate a lot of, and it has so many benefits. So if you have sagging skin, joint pain, gut issues, your decreased bone mineral density, slow to heal your wounds, slow recovery, these are all things that collagen can dramatically improve. If we're not giving our body the building blocks to produce it, we just age more rapidly. It also improves sleep, improves blood sugar control. So it's essentially like the Swiss Army knife of healthy aging.
Like I said, Paleo Valley's bone broth is something special. Make Paleo Valley part of your longevity regimen. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 20% off when you subscribe and 15% off your first order. That is drdrew.com/Paleo Valley.
That's brilliant. And thank you, Drew. Who's Dr. Drew? Where is he? Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
And of course, we are big fans of Paleo Valley and TWC. But if you are not taking NR Boost, Cinesync, and Fatty 15, I don't understand. These are things that will contribute to longevity and wellness. We've rarely had things as effective as this available. We've never had it before, frankly. And now we do. And it's something I insist my family take. You should be taking. This is a kind of a no fooling recommendation. Sometimes I tell people to do things and they think I'm giving a sort of a general recommendation. This really is important.
Some people think you're lying because you're making money.
And it takes a long time for this to work. I've been taking NR for 15 years, Susan, 12 years? Yeah. And
I put up your ad, and somebody said, are you lying because they're paying you money to sell this? And I said, no, my family takes it every day.
Yes, thank you for that. It just is. I thankfully can sell a product that I can truly excited about. Listen, when I go practice medicine, I get paid for that too. And I'm not lying when I take care of patients. This is not different. Okay, Alex Krainer on Substack, and also Naked Hedgie, Hedgie, I think is how you spell that. Alex, did I get that right?
Yeah, I think so. It's like a hedge fund manager. It's like hedgy.
All right, that's on X. Life in the feedlot, tightening psychotic matrix in the West. You don't mince words. Tell me about that.
Well, the point I was trying to make with this article is that, we live in the West in a certain matrix, for the lack of a better word, and we have lived within this matrix for generations now. So I think that we've come to the point where we are actually kind of afraid of freedom because living outside of the matrix may seem scary. I'll try to make it point simple because this could be a deep philosophical discussion. But I spent a day last week on the island of Ij in Croatian Adriatic, and it's a small island with a small town in it. And the only thing it's famous for is that the bass player from the band Nirvana, Chris Novoselic, is from there, and he lives there now. And the thing that struck me about this island is that all the houses have no bars on their windows, even on the ground floor. And the doors are, simple doors, easy to break into. And then in the afternoons and in the evenings, the place is just chock full of little children all over the place, and they're unattended. And I saw children all over the place until late into the night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. So I thought, well, these people sure feel safe and comfortable here. So the next day, I went for a coffee and I asked a local person there, so how much police is there on this island? And the guy told me there is no police on this island, it's zero. So this could be an example of life outside of the matrix, where the whole concept of safety, of security, of communal living evolves down to natural law. And natural law is a very simple thing. It just says act with honor, and do no harm. So now what would happen on this little island if somebody tried to harm a child is that the community would take care of it, and they would probably beat him to a bloody pulp. And so nobody dares to break in. It's the communal life without the need for the matrix to regulate living. It's people living within the natural law. And so this is how I grew up. I grew up in the communist world. And people might think, wow, this must have been terrible. No, it was awesome. I had a great childhood. Living in that communist world was really free. Why? Not by the benevolence of the communist state, but because the governing structures have kind of atrophied late into the evolution of that system. And people just got on with life in between. And I think life was pretty much as I just experienced it last week in Chris Novoselic's hometown. It's just people getting on with life and living in comfort and security without state interference. And so that's my whole thing, that, we've been living in this matrix for so long that even our discourse about it devolves into tweaking the matrix to make it a little bit better. So, in my article, I made a comparison with chickens. Imagine if we were chickens, and we've lived for so many generations inside of this feedlot that all we can think about in terms of trying to make life better is how we could rearrange the feedlot. So should the lights be like this? Is the farmer the good guy? Of course he is. He's taking care of us. Should the fodder be a bit better or less better? Should it flow this way rather than that way? Should the cages be maybe a little bit better and arranged in a different way? While the whole concept of us being divine beings that live here as their birthright and in this place as their birthright kind of got erased from the picture, and we can no longer even conceive living communal lives where there is no need for government, prisons, police, or anything else to make life worth living, free, prosperous, and so forth. So that's what inspired my article, because I lived in both worlds, and I can contrast them, and I see differences. Whereas I think that maybe if you really lived for several generations in the feedlot, then the feedlot is the external reality of the world.
Is that what Grand Deception is about?
No, Grand Deception is about geopolitics. It's about the historical and current relations between Russia and the Western world. That book got banned, by the way, so it can be purchased. That is, it can be purchased, but only from the publisher, Red Pill Press, directly from them. It's been banned by Amazon about 6 weeks after I published it.
Why? What's there?
I think that what I wrote in that book was not meant to be known. It was not meant to be understood. It provides the broader context about the relationships between particularly the United States and Russia. The very important fact that Russia and the United States used to be very close friends and allies throughout the 19th century, that alliance was destroyed by the British Empire deliberately in a particularly sinister way. And so today it's not even known by most Americans. For example, that Russia played a very important role in the US Civil War. When the Union's government, Lincoln's government, was almost about to collapse, Russian Tsar Alexander II sent his Baltic fleet to New York and his Pacific fleet to San Francisco, where they anchored for 6 months. And they prevented the intervention of the colonial forces, France and Great Britain, on the side of the South, which would have broken the Union. And today, there wouldn't be any United States. It would have been, kind of like a couple of small, weak client states, like in South America, that would have been subordinated to the British Empire. The Union was saved by Russian intervention. But those facts have been basically airbrushed out of the
Alex,
mainstream.
I got to say, so much so much of our history was determined by European powers. I mean, the Revolutionary War was won because of the French. Civil War won because of the Russians. I mean, we have a strange relationship with our history, and particularly with those people that have been friends in the past. And I am aware, and I think it's Churchill that really sort of adulterated some of the relationship with Russia. At least he was part of that process, was he not? Where he was very concerned about what was happening. It was very complicated, to be fair. It's hard to point at one thing. And there were some nasty players involved as well. And then people got defensive and things broke apart. That's what happens. It's like a family feud, right? I mean, yeah, families could have been very tight at one time, and then when they fall apart, it's that much worse when it is a family or a neighborhood. But listen, I could talk to you all day about these things. You have a very interesting perspective on all of it. Give me, and just to conclude, what is your, because I have to wrap up right now. I've got Tom Homan standing by, our border czar. Give me a little primer on what you think is going to happen economically. You opened by talking about the tariff issues with the EU. How is this all going to play out from your perspective? And then we'll say goodbye to you.
In the medium and long, in the short term, it's going to be bumpy. There's no question about it. You know, Trump is basically, you have choice between two systems. One is the American system of political economy, reindustrialization, internal development, buildup of prosperity, infrastructure, industry in the United States. The other system is the British system of free trade, which has basically eviscerated every country that's adopted it. And so it is clear to me that Trump is trying to change course towards the American system of political economy. It's going to face very stiff opposition. It's going to require tariffs. Some people are not going to be happy about that. But it is going to help bring industrial production back into the United States. There's going to be inflation, but inflation was going to come anyhow. The system that we have now, for all the moaning and bitching and complaining that you're going to hear in the media, this system is unsustainable and it's going to collapse anyway. So what Trump is doing, I think he's bringing that collapse closer, and he's going to change that system to something that's going to bring prosperity back to the United States. And I think that's a good cause.
Your mouth to God's ears. Alex Krainer, everybody. Naked Hedgie on X. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Talk to you again soon, I hope.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you for staying up late. We appreciate that he's in Europe right now. Let me quickly now introduce Tom Homan. You can follow him on X at Real Tom Homan. It's Homan. And ice.gov on X as well. Mr. Homan, I'm so appreciative that you stopped by to say hi to us today. Thank you for being here.
Hey, good afternoon.
And I don't know if you remember, we ran into each other, Fox News, in the big green room there downstairs. And you very kindly shook my hand, and we chatted about a few things, and I really appreciated your kindness.
No, it's nice meeting you. I follow you somewhat. I'm busy, but I got an eye on you.
You're busy. That's true. So, Tom, one thing I never, do you like to be called Tom, Mr. Homan, Mr. Czar? What do you prefer to be called?
Tom's fine.
I never hear anybody talking about you very much, and I'm fascinated. Like, where'd you grow up? How'd you get into this kind of work? How do you see what you're doing now in the grand sweep of your life and your life's purpose?
Well, I grew up in a small town upstate New York, right outside of Fort Drum, New York. It's a small town, about 2,500. But I became a police officer in New York, and shortly after that, I became a border patrol agent. And I climbed the ranks over 40 years. I went from border patrol agent to special agent. Then I started climbing the ranks. So, supervisor, special agent, district director, assistant SAC, deputy SAC, SAC. Then was transferred headquarters under ICE as the assistant director for enforcement, nationwide enforcement. Then I became a head of ERO, third in command of ICE. And I announced my retirement. Trump won. This is in the Trump 45, he called me the day of my retirement and asked me if I stay and run the agency, which would be a 3-step promotion. So I did. So I was the ICE director under President Trump 45. I retired again. And for the second time, I got in retirement. When he won this past election, he asked me to come back and be the border czar. So I didn't hesitate. I came running because for the last 4 years, I woke up every day upset what the last administration did to the most secure border we ever had. that we created, that we worked very hard at. So when he asked me to come back for the second time, I didn't hesitate. I was the first guy he picked, the first guy back.
It seems like you're having great success in your endeavor in terms of keeping the border safe. As far as what's going on in cities and sort of the deportation efforts, I have a kind of a difficult, maybe an odd question, but I keep wondering myself, I live here in Los Angeles and there's all these sanctuary cities around, and there are government officials in my state breaking the law, breaking federal laws, standing up to the federal government, so-called standing up, but in doing so, they are breaking laws. Why isn't there more legal action on behalf of the primacy of the federal law?
Well, look, they got to cross that line, right? A lot of these politicians, they come real close to crossing the line, but very few actually cross the line. And the ones that have,
I see.
We prosecuted judges, we prosecuted members of Congress, we have prosecuted some politicians, and I leave it up to Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, it's their job to prosecute. But you're right. I mean, a lot of the politicians, they come up to that line, and I've said from day one, you can protest ICE. You have your First Amendment rights. Protest all you want. You can choose not to support ICE. I think that's shameful, since ICE is making this country safer every day by arresting public safety threats and removing them from the country. But if you cross that line and impeding our efforts, it's a felony. If you put hands on an ICE officer, that's a felony. If you knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien, that's a felony. And, President Trump made it clear 3 weeks ago that it's going to be zero tolerance. The number of people we prosecuted for 18 U.S.C. 111, which is impediment, interfering, all those other things, is at a historic high. And we're going to keep prosecuting people that get in our way. And I'd like to tell people all the time, ICE isn't just out there nilly-dilly doing whatever they want. ICE is enforcing the laws enacted by Congress. And that's why I get really upset when I hear members of Congress want to vilify ICE, compare them to Nazis, compare them to terrorists, call them racist, well, they're simply enforcing laws that they enacted. So that upsets me, and I think a lot of that rhetoric from Congress has emboldened those on the left, that small percentage of those on the left who moved from protester to criminal to violence against ICE officers. I think that's one of the reasons assault against ICE officers is up 830%.
And did you see this case up in Maine? People, sort of caught people's attention, and you as a police officer may have an opinion about this, where somebody who was here legally, but stayed too long illegally, became a police officer and got arrested for attempting to buy a firearm. The ATF team got activated. I don't know. Were you aware of this case?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it. It's a shame that police department didn't do proper vetting, because it's actually a felony for an illegal alien to possess a firearm in this country. And I know there's several left-leaning cities that we're going to hire illegal police officers. That's well. If you do it, then we're going to send ICE officers to arrest your police officer, because it's a felony for an illegal alien to carry a firearm in this country.
But they're, it's so interesting to me. People don't appreciate. I just want to get your opinion about this. Every little town in the country has to field a team. They have to field a police force. And sometimes people move from state to state or town to town who maybe shouldn't be in police officer work any longer, but they've managed to obscure their past in various ways. Do you think, do you imagine ways to combat that? I just worry about that. I feel like these poor towns, they're underfunded, they're undermanned, they're trying to find people that want to do this work. How do we make sure that the system isn't abused?
Well, proper vetting. No one should be a police officer carrying a badge and gun unless you're vetted. Have background investigation, so social security card, your birth certificate. I mean, these are people were given the authority to take a life in certain situations if he deems it necessary. So it's like we do at ICE. When we hire ICE officers, board legislatures, a deep vetting process to make sure, number one, they're not a criminal. Number two, we actually, in ICE and Board 2, we make sure they're U.S. citizens, and we check their criminal history in their past. I mean, every law enforcement agency, I don't care how small it is, they can at least at a minimum ask for a birth certificate, social security card, and run an NCIC on their police department. All I'm going to do is set out a teletype on the NCIC and find out her criminal history. But, I think one of the ways we stop it is, two ways. Number one, we send a clear message that you hired an illegal alien and give them a gun. That's a felony. We will prosecute not only the illegal alien, we'll prosecute the person who gave the gun. Second of all, this system worked because when he did try to purchase a firearm, it notified the ATF. And of course, the ATF will take action and prosecute. So there's a system of checks and balances. And I just hope this was a mistake, oversight, or something that no one actually knowingly hired an illegal alien to be a police officer.
And I'm also thinking about, cases on the other side where if people get sort of dragged into an let's say they're arrested by ICE and they actually do have reasonable cause to be in this country. Is that system working? Is the legal part of this up and running? And we heard during the last administration how everything was backed up months and people were, getting lost in this country. Are things both ways working for and against the system?
Look, I think they're working better than they have been since Trump 45. I mean, every morning I get up, first thing I do is read the daily report, the data from Border Patrol, data from ICE. Plus, I review the media columns when they talk about immigration enforcement. There's a lot of fake stories out, first of all. I read stories. Most of the people that ICE arrest are not criminals. Most of the people in ICE detention aren't criminals. It's just a fake story. I look at the data every day. The majority of people in our custody are criminals. But the left says, well, they're not criminal enough. It's only DUI. That's not really crime. Well, DUIs, kill over 10,000 people a year. I consider that a significant safety threat. So the media is trying to spin it. Well, they're not criminal enough. Matter of fact, I read a story the other day and it shocked me. The headline was less than 1% of ICE deportees were convicted of murder. I mean, really? That's going to be the level set now? That's going to be the qualifier? No. So I can guarantee you, I look at the numbers every day, the majority of people in ICE detention are criminals. Who are the rest of the people in ICE detention? They're national security threats. Most national security threats, like all the 300 Iranians we've arrested last month, they don't have criminal history. National security threats usually they'll lay low until they do their dirty deeds. So they don't get the attention of law enforcement. We have gang members. Many gang members really don't have criminal histories. And finally, we have extradited removal cases. Those arrested by Border Patrol coming across are mandatorily detained by federal law, by statute. So they're in detention. So I wish the media would say, well, everybody in ICE detention is either criminal, a public safety threat, or mandatory by federal law. That'd be a fact. The other false story I read is that ICE is arresting mostly non-criminals, which is false. I looked at the numbers the other day. Out of 130,000 arrests, over 70,000 were criminals. That's 70%. Again, who are the other 30%? National security threats and those with final orders. Those who had due process at great taxpayer expense. A federal judge says they must be deported. They send ICE a final order of deportation. ICE's job is to deport them. So we will arrest them and deport them. So the media should read the majority of people we arrest are public safety threats and national security threats, and those that were ordered removed by a federal judge. That'd be a hacker story.
And then I'm assuming those that are on the margin have due process as well. They can argue their case and hopefully find their way back if that's appropriate. I want to add another headache to your pile of headaches. My producer just sent me a headline. The LA Police Department is working to allow non-citizen DACA recipients turned police officers the ability to carry firearms full-time.
Well, that would
Los
be
Angeles.
It's just incredible. That would be something for the Department of Justice to investigate and see if they're cross line for prosecution. I mean, if DOJ believes they've crossed that line and committed a crime, then those officials will be held responsible. I think President Trump and this administration has been clear. They don't care who you are. I mean, for the last 4 years, all we heard is no one's above the law. No one's above the law. President Trump is above the law. Well, either are members of law enforcement, either are members of Congress, either are judges. And we prosecuted all of them. So we'll see what happens on this case. I'm not familiar with that, but it'll be something we certainly look into.
I'm just alerting you and adding to your headaches. Speaking of which, what keeps you up at night now?
The safety of the men and women of ICE, with threats, assaults up 830%. Throughout my career, I've had a long career. I buried Border Patrol agents. I buried ICE agents. And the one thing I never want to do again is hand a folding flag to a child or a spouse. So I pray every night. Every night before I go to bed, I pray that every man and woman in ICE go home safe to their families. And I also pray that no one loses their life. I mean, even the people who were arrested. I don't want anybody to die. And I said 2 months ago, if the rhetoric continues, the hateful rhetoric being pushed by the media and by members of Congress, it's going to end up with someone dying. And unfortunately, I was right. A couple of weeks ago, someone attacked a Border Patrol facility in Texas, and little did he know he was attacking a SWAT facility where Border Patrol SWAT trains. And after putting many rounds in that building trying to kill Border Patrol agents, they took them out. There is another group of people attacked an ICE detention facility in El Dorado, Texas, to ambush ICE officers as they left. One local police officer responded to shots fired, was shot in the neck. So look, I'll say it again. I mean, if the rhetoric doesn't go away and the hate continues, there's going to be more bloodshed. I hate to see it. So every night I go to bed, the last thing I do is pray for the men and women of ICE, that they go home to their families. Because what I want people to remember, with all the hate that ICE has taken, they're Nazis or racists or terrorists, people need to understand, they're mothers and fathers too. They don't hang their heart on a hook when they go to work. They've seen a lot of terrible things that are occurring. I've seen a lot of terrible things. Like, I've held dead children. I've held dying children. I've talked to little girls as young as 9 that were raped multiple times by members of the cartel. I've stood in the back of a tractor trailer with 19 dead people that suffocated and baked to death because the smuggler let them boxed in that steel truck. So, these men and women see terrible things every day, and they take that home every day. These men and women are human too. And I wish people think about that when they're attacking them, thinking they're monsters and they're racist. These are mothers and fathers who are doing the job, enforcing laws enacted by Congress. And I'll say it again. Members of Congress want to attack us, call them racist for enforcing the immigration law. Well, if they're racist for enforcing immigration law, what's that make them? They wrote the law. I mean, ICE is making this up. So again, the threat against ICE is what turns my stomach every day.
The easy question would be, how do you handle that? But I think, that every person has their own way of, doing their job and keep making meaning of what they're doing. But my question to you would rather be, through all this experience, what have you learned about humans? What are your thoughts on us?
There's good people, there's bad people. It's unfortunate. My family's not living with me right now because of numerous death threats against me. I got them someplace else. People can hate on me. I'm the border czar. You can hate on me all you want. I really don't care what people think of me, because I know that the men and women of ICE, and under my command, what we're doing as a border czar, we're saving lives. And so I carry my duty with pride. So, for instance, President Trump has illegal immigration down 96%, which means 96% less people are coming. That means less aliens are dying making the journey, less women and children are being sex trafficked, less fentanyl is coming across the border to kill Americans, less non-suspected terrorists are coming across that border. President Trump is saving lives every day. And I wish people would just educate themselves. I think if you went out and asked most protesters, what are you protesting exactly? Many of them don't know. Many have never been to the ICE website to see that 70% of everybody we arrest is a public safety threat and many national security threats. No one looks at the ICE website and say, okay, well, they enforce immigration law. They also investigate drug smuggling, gun smuggling, weapons of mass destruction technology being smuggled out of the country and sold to our enemies around the world, be used against our war fighters. I mean, we rescued, so far under the Trump administration, we rescued 13,000 children that the last administration lost track of. They lost track of 300,000. We've already found and saved 13,000 of them. Not all of them were in danger. Many we found. Some were in sex trafficking, forced into sex slavery. Some were in forced labor. Educate yourself before you hate on any person or any agency, because I think once you educate yourself, you can form an opinion, but form your opinion on facts, not the rhetoric of the media out there that wants to constantly attack the Trump administration. And I mean, some of this media is just out and out dishonest in what they're reporting. I think they hate Trump more than they care about integrity of journalism. And some of these people out there that want to burn cities down, attack ICE buildings, and attack ICE officers, and throw Molotov cocktails on them, they hate Trump more than they love their country or the safety and security of their country. I say this every time I'm up on the Hill. I've asked every Democrat that would approach me one question, and not one of them can answer it. I always ask them, what's the downside on a secure border? What's the downside unless sex trafficking? What's the downside unless drugs coming in? What's the downside unless no inspected terrorists? What's the downside unless children dying and crossing that border? Under Joe Biden, we had over 4,000 aliens died making that journey, historic record. 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl overdose that comes across that border, historic record.
Yep.
So what's the downside of secure border? There's no downside.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the oddest chapter to say that you don't need borders, build no fences, build bridges. It's just the oddest thing. But I mean, we could go all day with that one because it's just such a crazy thing. I remember at the time I kept saying, go up to Canada and try to get in there and work. See what their border's like. It's a lovely, the great utopia of Canada. They'll shake you down if you don't have a reason to be there. Trust me. But I have a couple of more fun questions. I'm watching my chats here, and they noticed a samurai sword in the background. Is there a story with that?
That was a gift. Behind me, I got a lot of stuff behind me. That was a samurai sword, was a gift. I also have hanging, the only thing I kept my days in board in 1984. The only thing I kept was my campaign hat and my baton. Batons aren't used anymore, so it's kind of an antique piece. But behind me to my right, that's me and a lot of pictures of over back there, over the flag. That's me and President Trump. And above those pictures of me and President Trump is every badge I've ever carried that I retired. Police officer's badge, Border Patrol badge, Special Agent badge, Supervisor Special Agent badge, every badge I ever carried. And I'm proud. My father, and on the other wall, the most thing I'm mostly proud of is on this back wall, above the samurai sword, is a shadow box of my greatest hero, my father. My father was a World War II hero. He's an 11th Airborne. He's got 2 Brown Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, and he never hung those medals up. I didn't know those medals existed until he got really sick. We had to sell the home and put him in assisted living. And I asked him if I could have those medals. And he asked me why. I said, because I'm proud of what you've done. To this day, he died a few years ago, but this day I don't really know what he did to earn. But I remember John Kelly, a 4-star Marine general, when he was Secretary of Homeland Security, came to my office. He seen that. He said, I'm a Airborne. They're not your medals. I said, no, sir, they're my father's. He goes, you know what these medals mean? I says, not really. And John Kelly walked me through every medal, told me what they meant. And I hang him. I hang him in honor. He was my biggest hero, and I hang him in his honor.
What did you learn about what he was doing?
Well, the only thing I can find, John Kelly said, well, I'll go get his records. 4-star general has access to those things. Only to find out all the records were burned in a fire in Kansas City years ago. So I did find a microfiche that when he returned, he was wounded twice. The second time he was hurt real bad. When he came home, my hometown had a hero's parade for him, and we proposed to my mom. I found a microfiche on that. So I really don't know. I mean, when he had his funeral, an old fella came in a wheelchair, and as he approached the casket, I was standing there. I know it's the 11th Airborne Division. Now, they don't exist anymore. So I asked him. His name was Sterling Gable. I remember his name. It was kind of a strange name. And he of course, he told me your dad was very proud of what you've done for your country. And I says, well, I know you shouldn't live with everyone. You served my dad. Which, yes, I did. And he says, your dad was a hero. Your dad saved a lot of lives. And I was there with him. And he didn't really want to talk about it either. I mean, the something about World War II heroes, they were proud of what they did. I've asked my dad one time to tell me. My dad said, look, I killed some people. Not proud of it, but it was war. But it's not something I want to talk about. And he left it at that. But Sterling Gable gave me a little bit more about him being a hero and saved a lot of lives. So I live with that. I just, I'll meet him again someday and hopefully get the whole story. But it's my hero. That's my hero back there.
Well, Tom, I know you are a hero to a lot of people, and I also understand that you're a lightning rod for a lot of controversy, and I appreciate you standing up to do your job, and I'm certain your dad would be proud, and you've certainly carried on in his tradition. We appreciate you spending time here with us. Is there anything you'd like to close with?
Yeah, I want people to know that. I'll reiterate it. Look, I was a Border Patrol agent, and I was an ICE agent. I was the first ICE director. I actually came up through the ranks. So the 20,000 men and women that worked for me, I didn't do anything. I didn't tell them to do anything. I didn't do myself. I was one of them. I want people to understand that they're out there every day, putting their lives on line for this country. They're tools of the trade. They got to strap a gun to the hip and wear a Kevlar vest. They don't make a lot of money, but they're out doing a job every day. If you see an ICE agent, whether he's out there in getting gas or in a restaurant, you see a Border Patrol agent, just say thank you. These men and women are taking so much hate right now. I mean, not only is Border Patrol and ICE agents being doxxed or pictures are being put on the internet, there's websites that they're posting their pictures, they're doxing their homes, they're doxing their spouses, they're doxing their children, for God's sake. If you see one of these heroes, say thank you. So that's going to go a long way. They don't get enough of that. And I know because I was one of them. And God bless each and one of them. I hope everybody joins me in prayer that these men and women go home to their families every day because they're trying to make this country safer. And every public safety threat they arrest, every national security threat they arrest makes this country safer. So God bless them.
And Tom, I'm looking at our chats here on both our restreams, and people are shouting out gratitude and thanks to you. And we appreciate you being here, and I hope to shake your hand again someday soon. Maybe we'll run each other in the green room in New York.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
All right, Tom. Take care. All right. Caleb, let's throw up what's coming tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday, 2:00 Pacific time. We'll be here. I know we got a lot going on this week. Let me see. I've got it as Kennedy coming in tomorrow.
That made me cry a little bit.
Made you cry? Susan had a real emotional reaction because of his commitment to his people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his history
dad,
and what he stands for.
And also his dad's thing too. I heard you reacting over there with that.
I was like, woo.
She was making noises.
I know.
Okay, Kennedy
Usually
in here
you
tomorrow.
make fun of me when I do that, but you didn't see it.
A hypnotist in here. We also have Elizabeth Potter, Dr. Eric Weiss, Alex Marlowe. Kelly Victory will be hosting on the 20th. Salty Cracker coming in on my birthday. He very kindly agreed to. You guys have been agitating for him, and so he'll be here. And so we'll all celebrate on my birthday together. Let me quickly look at what you guys are saying. You're expressing, I'm seeing all the gratitude for Tom here. And I know people. I'm not naive to the fact that he's a controversial figure for many people. I get it. And let's talk about it like we always did throughout history of this country, rather than just throw insults at each other. If you're concerned about it.
Well, we had some insults on Facebook, but we blocked them.
Oh, why am I not seeing them on the restream?
Oh, they were there.
Okay, good. All right, excellent, everybody.
Totally ridiculous. Like when we block you, you're just screaming into the wind. I just want to let you know.
Well, I will just say quickly, Kenny and I came up together. She was at the radio station I worked in the 90s. I've known her since then. Then she ran away to MTV and became major star at MTV, and then off to Fox after that. And we've known each other ever since, and we see each other all the time to this day. And we're both great friends of Kat Timpf, which is
very
sort of
funny.
gluing us all
It'll
together.
be a little different than today.
Well, Kennedy's got lots of thoughts, and I want to hear them. And we'll be here listening to them tomorrow at
What
2
do you
o'clock.
want to talk to her about?
Let's see what comes up, what she says in the pre-interview. I want to talk to her. Let me think about it. I always spend some time thinking before the show because she'll call like she sees it, and I'll surprise you all tomorrow with my thoughts. We'll be there then, 2 o'clock Pacific time.
Toot.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.